Give me a summary.
I don't remember.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't.
All right, Zack Nagy, LSU Country is our guest. Look, Zach, an interesting couple of weeks LSU has here, and it's going to feel like a long time because you got Army, you got the bye week, and you got Bama. Let's start with, though, Auburn. What did you see? What did you like?
Look, dude, I mean, everybody in the world, you see this offense and everything about it just jumps off the page. But defensively, you have to look at Zy Alexander. I mean, look, they targeted him and they went after him like crazy. And I guess that was Hugh Freeze's game plan going into the day because, I mean, just that first half was incredible. They just kept going after him, after him, and after him. And he responded well. He finished with one of the best games of the season. We got to talk to him afterwards. And, he was extremely upbeat. And, he feels like this secondary could be rounding a corner at some point. And because it's been a pretty challenging first, couple of games, of course. It's not rocket science. But, he felt fantastic about the way that they're going. And obviously you don't have Deuce Chestnut right now, and you're dealing with a couple of other things in that, regard. But look, man, to see somebody like Zy Alexander shine, that was phenomenal to me because he's worked so hard to get to this point.
I want to get into Deuce Chestnut since you brought him up. But funny how Zy Alexander looks in bump and run coverage, huh?
Hey, man, you've been saying it.
Well, I mean, it's what he's run. It's what he was the Southern Conference Player of the Year. I mean,
exactly.
I'm not trying to be rude, but he's 6'3" for a reason. I mean, he's not – Zach, I mean, he's a bump and run corner. Zach, for me, it seems like the defense has started going now that Perkins actually kind of knows what he's doing. From the interception, so since the interception, LSU defense per quarter has only given up 5 points a quarter. And listen – you do that with this offense, I feel pretty good about you going into Tuscaloosa if you can pull that off. What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. You look at what they did in that second half against Missouri, translated that into Auburn. Sure, you and I talked, and a lot of people have just said, that Auburn team, sure, that offense isn't, the best in the world.
Yeah, but Missouri is.
Precisely. And my thing is if you can carry the success over from Missouri, do that against Auburn, an SEC opponent's an SEC opponent. It is what it is. Every conference foe, it is what it is. They're all going to be talented in some way, shape, or form. So to shut down that offense and just carrying the success from that Missouri game was extremely impressive to me. And, kind of to get on with your point about what you said about Perkins, I mean, look, when he's on, he's on. And I think Matt House and this entire defensive staff, they're kind of simplifying things from a schematic standpoint. And once you're doing that, man, look, the sky's the limit. So, again, to what you were saying, I feel extremely, extremely well coming off that bye week, heading into Tuscaloosa. I think this team is kind of turning that corner and getting to that point that we thought that they could always get to.
Now, Bama defensively, and I don't – because we're going to have you on before then, so I don't really want to – I mean, we got a couple weeks to go through that gauntlet, all right? So I just want to be cautious here. Zach, for me, though, like when I look at this, you're not going to face a better offense than Missouri the whole way. Like I don't like if you go 3 and out. Let me put it like this: if Jane goes 3 and out, and this offense goes 3 and out, you don't necessarily completely have to worry anymore that they're just going to go and light you up, right? Like
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you.
So with that, I'm starting to look at this and be like, hey man, do we got something here?
I do. I think so. I think you have a really good point there because that Missouri offense is fantastic. Luther Burden, I mean, we saw the game. We don't have to, go back on what happened in the past. It is what it is. But moving ahead, I mean, that Alabama offense doesn't necessarily – I don't look at them and say, oh, my goodness, like we have to score every single damn time we touch the football.
Right.
You can say the same thing about Florida and then fast forward to like a Texas A&M opponent as well. So I completely agree with what you're saying here. I think, the toughest – games on your schedule are in the past now, and you're rounding that corner and you're getting to that back half of the schedule where, just about every single one you can go into that one and feel like, okay, like we're in a pretty good position moving forward.
Anything else you take from the game against Auburn? What's another takeaway that you walked away with?
Look, I think for the most part, a lot of people would agree with this. Kyren Lacy, and small sample size, of course. We've all seen the drops in the past. His track record would have a lot of people raising their eyebrows and saying, well, there's been a lot of trouble, with him holding on to the football. There's been a lot of drops. And, he had a drop against Auburn, and he went up to Brian Kelly and said, I owe you one. And Brian Kelly was like, no, you owe me two. And you know what? He went and he got him a couple. And to have 4 receptions, 111 yards, a touchdown, I think it was like 27.8 yards per catch.
Yeah,
Another guy who is emerging as a key piece of this offense. We've seen Logan Diggs do it time and time again. And you know what Brian Thomas Jr. is going to do. You know what Malik Neighbors is going to do. And, to add another guy like Kyren Lacy into the mix is significant, especially when Brian Thomas kind of had a slow night. He picked up the slack. And in turn, you had another offensive performance that was just dominant.
It's interesting you bring up Kyren Lacy because, God dog it, is he electric with the ball in his hands.
You and I watched it firsthand during fall camp. I mean, I think you and the rest of the people in the LSU space would sit back and say, like, okay, this is a guy who's poised to have a breakout year. He dominated spring camp. He dominated the fall. And then fast forward to a couple of games into the season, and it was like, well, what the hell? Like, what's going on here, man? Like, show us what you got. And he struggled. And now you saw him against Auburn, and, dude, he balled. I mean, he balled. It was a career game for him, and we got to talk to him after, and he was electric. He was ecstatic, and he's your typical Louisiana guy. So to see him be extremely happy and just round that corner like he believes he's doing, it was a really good sight to see.
He's got to hold on to the ball. And I'm glad that they went back to him. I mean, look, you can't have a drop like that against Bama. I get it, but you allow BTJ, you allow Neighbors because you know that that's not going to happen more than once, right?
Agreed.
Like you're like, crap, it happened, whatever. But if he can hold on to the ball, he is your third option. Now, they took away Brian Thomas Jr. Now, Ron Roberts is a guy at Southeastern. I'm leaving the program. He's coming in as next head coach. I've been around Ron, the DC. Right. I've been around the staff. I mean, look, I had more conversations with Pete Golding in that time frame, never knowing that he'd be the DC at Bama and Ole Miss. And I know exactly the coverages that they were calling. Like, knew it. It's the same thing. And they bracketed Malik. They bracketed BTJ. And good on Jaden for not going away from Kyren, even though he had the drop. And it's not just that, Zach. I was thinking to myself, like, hey, man, Florida State too, and like it's 2010 and you're on 3rd and 6. If you got to punt this ball away and they go down and score, you're in a ball game. You're in a fight with them, and they're able to pull it away. Zack Nagy, LSU Country, joins us. Deuce Chestnut. I don't want to put you in like this. What are you hearing about him? I would rather do it another way. What is your opinion of what's going on? Like, just strict opinion. I
mean, you have to kind of look at a situation like that and think that it could be a disciplinary thing. There's some games where he's been exposed and he can't be happy, and just the trajectory of the secondary as a whole, it's hard for a lot of people in that room to be upbeat. And you have, a lack of, in some way, shape, or form, veterans in that room to pick up the guys who are, falling apart. For somebody like Deuce Chestnut, man, he's a talent. He showed in the ACC. I know it's been a struggle so far, but the SEC is a whole different ballgame. It takes time to adjust. And I think it took somebody like Zy Alexander time to adjust, and he's finally getting to that point where he's feeling a little bit more comfortable. For Deuce, maybe he was getting to that point, and then he hit a breaking point. So to answer that question, it's hard to say what specifically it is. I think you'll get an update on Thursday potentially on what's going on with him. But it's a bigger loss than people want to say, just because he has experience in the ACC. He has shined, and it's a challenging situation. If you lose him for the rest of the season, it puts a damper in the secondary for sure.
Yeah, you're an injury away if Stamps isn't back, which Stamps was out and didn't play on Saturday, and Brian Kelly didn't put him in his injury report. And I'm trying to ask him.
He's been dealing with a groin injury. I could be wrong though. I think he's dealing with something minor.
Okay, well, I was like, hey, everybody talking about him, but you're one DB injury away from being in real trouble. All right.
Oh, yeah.
Zach, Kyren Lacy, we got this from Michael Morris. He does have another year of eligibility, right? Because he got the COVID year.
I believe he has one more year of eligibility, correct?
Yeah, and he says even get an opportunity to be wide receiver 1. Look, if he does come back, he could have a big year. I mean, he could be a number 1 type of target. I do agree. Thank you, Michael, for the super chat. Army. Well, before we leave Auburn, let me finish with this one. recruiting. Bryce Underwood was in attendance.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Draylon Miller just decommitted. Oh, Terry Bussey was in the house. Double. What you thinking?
I could talk about this for days, so I'll put myself on a minute and a half timer here.
Do
Look,
it.
you're. I've been saying the term rounding the corner, and I'm going to say it again in the recruiting game. Look, this weekend was monstrous. I don't think I can recall a weekend of this magnitude. You had Bryce Underwood, the number one quarterback in America. Harlem Berry, the number one running back in America. Somebody like Draylon Miller is impressive. DeCorian Moore was back in town. You have a visitors list that is so star-studded to the point where we're on the sidelines, and I am sitting here just trying to figure out, like, I don't even know how this is possible. Bryce Underwood is a class act. Everybody that I've spoken to about the situation said that once again they hit it out of the park. It was another phenomenal visit. He looked like he had a great time. You saw him on the Jumbotron. There were a lot of things that are trending in the right direction for somebody with Bryce Underwood's caliber. And, he has a commitment date tentative. It's set for January. He will probably make his way back to Michigan one more time, if not more, because it's the hometown team. But, look, you have to feel very, very good about where the program sits with somebody like Bryce Underwood. To be in his top 3, top 4, because you have Colorado, Michigan, Penn State, I think, as well, LSU. It's going to be a battle down the stretch, but you have to feel comfortable getting him back to campus again, considering he was just here 2 months ago for a Lightning Splash.
I will say this. What Michigan does offensively does not suit him at all.
And I can agree with that. And that's why I think it was so important to get him down here and to see what Jaden Daniels is doing in person and say, and for Joe Sloan, the quarterback's coach, to look at Bryce Underwood in the eyes and say, man, this can be you in 2 or 3 years. This can be you, taking the reins and doing what we need you to do for this program. Because if you plug somebody like Bryce Underwood into that system and you put him with a quarterback coach like Joe Sloan, I mean, dude, that could be a match made in heaven, fit like a glove, whichever you want to say. It could be phenomenal. And then you surround him with somebody like Harlem Berry, who was in town. If I'm putting in a crystal ball, whatever you want to call it, I'm feeling very comfortable with where LSU sits with Harlem Berry. And I think, the rest of the people in the industry would agree. So, you're feeling pretty damn good. And then the last name you mentioned, Draylon Miller, obviously decommitted from Texas A&M today, coming fresh off of a visit from LSU. It's all about watching what recruits do, not what they say. And if you're watching what he's doing, fresh off a visit, decommitting, he might take his time. But all in all, it's a big time move for LSU if they can secure somebody's services like Draylon Miller.
Well, and not only that, they got into the top 6. The portal's not done. They hadn't even touched the portal yet. Look, I don't remember a time. Look, everybody wants to say the 5 stars, the 5 stars, the 5 stars. And I'm like, what the frick do you call Lance Hurd? Because that they basically what's happening is, at least on the offensive line, you are getting Alabama'd. You're getting Georgia'd. Because of one dude came out, and I guarantee you that if God willing, knock on wood, that it would like if they needed a guard, like let's just say Emory Jones, they would probably try to get Lance Hurd up to speed at playing guard. Like they're gonna get him in there. So where Georgia is doing it on the D line, LSU's doing it on the offensive line, and that's a whole different beast. What did you think of Lance Hurd? I mean, look, I don't really give two Rudy Poos about the false start and the holding, to be honest with you. I'm watching. Me and the team were watching the all 22 copy Sunday night, guys. Yeah, so Sunday night, and I'm like, bro, he's mauling dudes. Beans.
I just don't think you can sit back and nitpick a true freshman when it comes to a couple of different instances where he struggled. Because to me, the success that he had on the field outweighed the 1 or 2 negatives that he had. So I'm looking at
better than Proctor at Bama right now.
That's a very good point. We watched him get absolutely abused the other day. I mean,
Landon Jackson.
I don't want to talk about that. Obviously, the LSU community is going to sit back and be like, God damn it, I wish he was still here. But look, he's gone. He did what he did. He's flying up draft boards. He absolutely abused Proctor. And if I'm looking at somebody like Lance Hurd right now, I'm saying we got a good one. And this offensive line is going to be freakish again next year. And it's all full of Louisiana talent. So I'm feeling really damn good if I'm the offensive line. And I enjoyed watching Lance Hurd play football on Saturday night. I'll leave it short and sweet like that.
What do you expect from this week versus Army? Now, listen, I'm going to tell you, you can call me crazy. People always called me crazy. Pass defense for Army doesn't suck. Like, they're not going to guard Malik. They're not going to guard BTJ.
Right.
They're 13th in the country in pass defense.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that's time of possession. You're holding on the ball a long time.
Right.
But bad is bad. And I'm looking at them like, man, they're in bump and run coverage, man-to-man, sending blitzes. Hey, man, if you're not careful, they can knock Malik off of his route is what I mean. Like, the timing can be knocked off. Look, I love these kids. I love that they're at a service academy, but don't act like they don't have some areas of like that they can exploit you a little bit. God, dog, do you see this pterodactyl just keep flying? This damn mosquito keeps flying past my face. Anyway, what do you think about Army?
Look, first of all, I mean, before I even say anything, obviously respect to everything that they're doing over there. We were talking today. It was like what they do Monday through Friday is more difficult than what they're going to do on Saturday. So obviously tip your cap to what they're doing over there, first of all. But look, you can't look at any opponent and say it's done. Like, you can't look at any opponent and walk into a game and say we got this in the bag, because we watched what happened against Florida State. Obviously, two different tiers of programs.
Yep.
But when you look at somebody like Army, obviously you can't overlook what they do. So sure, they're passing in the passing game. We could see somebody like Malik Neighbors get held back a little bit. But at the end of the day, man, this LSU offense is going to eat, and they're going to do what they do best, and they're going to put points on the board. And you're going to probably see somebody like Garrett Nussmeier get in the game in the second half, and it's going to be a time where your youngsters can step on the field and shine and get some reps under their belt. But look, you can't go into a game and overlook what they can do on defense. But this is going to be a game where your youngsters can step in and, get some significant snaps under their belt and make an impact.
Last one for you. Anything stand out to you that still – I mean, look, I know what you're going to say or where you can go.
Yeah.
But – the Matt House thing's kind of calmed down after a little bit. Do you think they figured it out? I mean, like, is Army a good barometer? Like, is Auburn a good barometer? Do you think we got a team here? I mean, like, is there any big weaknesses that you're still like 1,000% worried about after the last couple of weeks?
You got me laughing because, like, obviously last time I was on, we were sitting here, or maybe it was like 2 times ago, we were sitting here talking about Matt House, just get the hell out. Like, we were just sitting here talking about, like, who's just, like, people were asking, like, who's just all this and that. I'm like, oh, you and I were just like, relax. Don't press the panic button yet. To answer your question, though, look, man, there's some things that need to be improved on this defense. You can't look at a game like Auburn and be like, okay, we got it. We're good. That's not necessarily the best offense to go up against. I want to see some more improvement at the second level. I'd like to see some more weak snaps as well. I think the rest of the world would too. I want to see more, consistency in the secondary. Zack Alexander had a good game. He had a good couple of quarters. But I just want to see this team play exceptionally well for 4 quarters. I need to see a complete game again because, there were times against Auburn where it wasn't picture perfect. And I want to see a picture perfect game from this defense on Saturday against Army. I want to see them shut down the triple option. I want to see them shut down everything that they do from an offensive perspective because – I firmly believe that this is a game where you can just crush it in the first half and then let your youngsters hop in the second half and just coast to the end. So, no, I'm not ready to sit back and say that this defense has got it, but I think we'll see that sooner rather than later once you head up to Tuscaloosa and face an Alabama squad.
Any player not named Whit Weeks that you're really intrigued on seeing?
Look, and it's a casual take. You know what I'm going to say? I want to see some more Deshaun Womack in my life. I want to see him get on the field and do a couple more things because Brian Kelly keeps talking about, how physically he looks ready, all this and that, but it's a learning experience. So it's kind of contradictory to a degree. I want to see him get on the field, get some significant snaps and do what he does best because every time he stepped on the field, he's been impactful. So, this will be a weekend where he gets significant snaps and, I'm going to be excited to watch that happen because I'm a Deshaun Womack fan.
I want to see Tyree Adams.
That's a great call. I like that a lot because we saw DJ Chester enter the fold. What was it against? Was Missouri?
Because here's the thing. I know that y'all got 2 dudes in Chester and Hurd that can play.
Oh yeah.
I kind of want to see I want to see Adams.
I think that's a fantastic approach. Like I want to see the offensive line do what they do best, and then I want to see maybe somebody like Javian Toviano enter the mix in the secondary and get some snaps too. So yeah, there's some young talent on this team that hasn't even scratched the surface, man. I love this 23 class.
Man, you know what was so bad for Toviano? I'm sorry, so bad for he came into the game and gave out that out route for a first down, and I'm like,
I had a feeling you were going to say that. That's why I hesitated on saying his name in the beginning.
Yeah, and I'm just like, man, what's so bad is because he's so far off of the receiver. he doesn't really have a chance. But to the untrained eye, people be like, that's why 25's not playing. And I'm like, God dang it.
You're right.
Like, can the kid get more than one rep? Also another one for me.
Hit me.
Kyren Jackson. I'm hearing some things. Like I'm hearing some things. Like, hey man, ain't nobody gonna start over him. And I'm just like, you remember the Rod Woodson when he was with the Patriots and Belichick had to tell him to kind of calm it down a little bit, off the record. And he was like, because he was lighting dudes up in practice.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the same kind of things.
You could say it's like the exact same thing with Caleb Jackson. Like, you remember during fall camp, he was crushing it.
Yeah.
And Brian Kelly had to come out and say, like, he pumped the brakes and was like, relax. But to get on to Kyren Jackson, man, he's a dog. He's a dude. Like, that's a guy that you want to have in your corner. And, it was just a matter of time of him catching up schematically, getting healthy, checking all the boxes. And, I mean, look, this year might not be the year for him just because it's a transition year in the secondary. But come spring camp, I think you and I are going to come back and resurface this and be like, we were ready. Like, we're ready for him to get on the field and make an impact because I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later for somebody like him.
Yeah, and look, Caleb Jackson and Whit Weeks are the two that I just have kind of forbade them in reference to, like, hey, if there's a guy you want to see, because, I mean.
It's the casual take. Like,
correct. Look, you saw him giving the pop pass. That's all that was is to send Bama a message, okay? Some of these play calls at the end are sending Bama a message, like, you're going to have to guard this.
Mm-hmm.
And I guarantee you they're going to run that same jet motion with Caleb Jackson to get the Downs kid, the freshman, to come down, and they're going to hit Kyren Lacy or somebody over the middle.
Yep.
Denbrock plays games. So, all right, I've kept you way too long. Thank you so much, Zack Nagy. Tell everybody where they can catch all your stuff.
Look, no, I owe you one because I was about 2 minutes late because of those technical difficulties. So I'm glad you kept me for a little bit. I always love hopping on here. But, man, y'all can catch me at LSU Country. Same old. Putting some recruiting stuff out there. A lot of recruiting content right now. Some football analysis. Women's basketball is about to start. So check us out on LSU Country. Number one team in the country. Just wait, man. That's going to be a movie. Every game's going to be a movie. I'm excited to catch that team. And then, obviously, you got my handle right there on the screen, @ZNagy20. Follow me on Twitter and check us out because we're putting out some really good stuff on LSU Country. But, Blake, man, always, every week I want to come on here. So anytime you need me.